From that stage, we have the raw crude. Then we move into the winterization stage. So what that is removing all the fats and lipids from the oil. It's just another part of the refinement process. We use an ethanol winterization here. And what that is just heating it up, diluting it into ethanol, holding it, moving it over, dropping the temps, filtering it a few times, polishing it off, and then rotovapping that off. And then at the end of that, you'll be left with winterized decarb oil, which, that does contain the full spectrum entourage effects that some people do like, but some people will stop there. This is the winterized decarb oil. You can see it's crystallized up. I've let it sit for a couple days just for this as well. So it's crystallized up. It's very, high CBD content in that. So some people may stay at that point in the process and utilize it in their product formulation, or we could move on to the next step, which is distillation. And what that is really even another step in the refinement process, trying to concentrate that CBD even more. So like you saw on the molecular white film distillation machine downstairs, yes, that is separating out your terpenes, your CBD main body fraction, and then your tails. So what you will be left with is those three fractions. And I mean, it can be, you can modify those through the boiling points given on what you're trying to target and so on and so forth.
So depending on the cannabinoid and the terpenes or
right, because
compounds.
Yeah, all these compounds have different boiling points, and that's kind of how we are separating them off.
And that's why it's such an intense science too, because you go 10, 20 degrees hotter or colder or something.
You don't know what you're grabbing.
Exactly.
Right. So, and I mean, with that being said, we do know what we're grabbing because we do have the in-house HPLC analytical system. This right here is our distillate. It's been sitting for about a couple of days as well. So you can see that it's already crystallized up as well. Yes. Around 50 to 60% CBD percentage will start crystallizing. Okay, from distillation, then we move on to the isolation, and that's where we...
And this is an important step of the process too. From here to here, from the distillate to the isolate is where the CBD industry splits. But at Spekr, we use isolate. So for many reasons, but this is a big split in the industry to where I tell a lot of people like I use isolate and they're like, oh, the typical talk.
Right. I mean, I understand. I see that. I hear it every day, but I mean, there's a place for both in the industry, especially, with military police personnel who can't risk that, very small chance of the entourage effect or some residual T, showing up on that kind of test.
And on top of that, you have to think about it from a purely pharmaceutical standpoint. If I'm FDA, trying to do FDA stuff, it's like you can't have a bunch of residual compounds in there when they're testing to like the billionth and
This plant, there's a lot of variability in this plant, so it is hard to get that consistency from, every single extraction. This distillate's going to be the same, but I do have a very positive, perspective on the entourage effect and, isolate by itself.
Yes.
So from there, from there, we will move into our isolation department, and they will take this distillate, mix it with one of our hydrocarbons, and then it will crash that isolate out. Typically, whenever we do the crash out, it's coming between 60 and 70% of the input distillate will be isolate. So that's pretty good to us. From there,
you guys are getting a pretty good yield on your stuff.
Right. So, I mean, I'll be honest, we had to take a step back and really dial in our operations. We utilize this lab a lot. You can see these little mini rotovapes. We've got a little short pass. We've got a lot of stuff in here. And that was really, really important to us to make sure that our process is in check. We don't have any product coming out that's under par. Like, we just can't have that. Right. So after this is crashed out, it'll go through a couple more processes of the refinement and the isolation, and then once you're left over, you'll have these shards like this, right?
Shatters.
Yeah, exactly. And these are cool to see. That's what it's looking like before it gets milled up into the isolate powder. Depending on the situation, we do have the ability to stop at any one of these points in the process and service our client. So that's kind of the process, and then it gets packaged up and we get to send it off to our happy clients like Spekr.
So what is your isolate typically coming out at? What kind of percentage are you working with?
Honestly, that's a great question. Across the industry right now, all labs are kind of having a variability in their potency test. 99.9 is obviously what we go for. Yeah. Anyone would want that. Honestly, I've seen that people are okay with, 99 plus because there is that variability. Like I said, we go for 99.9, But through my experience, there's been people saying it doesn't matter as long as it's just 99 or above for what they're doing.
So yeah, you typically go for a 99.9. I mean, the lab test that you gave me for the last batch of isolate that I got from Zelios was 99.9. And it's so awesome too, because what they do is they'll send you the lab test from the actual hemp flower as well. And that is one of the big factors that drew me to Zelios and Colby, because as soon as I asked him, it wasn't like let me see what I can do. It was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I can get that. Let me get that for you as soon as I can.
We can, we
got
will.
it, you know, exactly.